Hey everybody, Bobby Medina here with my good friend and dear pal, Paul Barron. And we are back with the Wunderkind here, Michael Kim, who you remember from probably his last release. And if you didn't see that, be sure to check it out. But Michael is a tremendous up and coming young player, and he releases some wonderful videos of great music. And not only is it just great music, but the videos are really fun in themselves. So we wanted to talk a little bit about his upcoming release. So welcome, Michael. How you doing?
Thanks, Bobby. It's nice to be back.
Hey, Michael. I know that this is quite an interesting and huge undertaking for this next project coming up. And I wanted to ask you. I've known of this tune and played it for years. Artistry in Rhythm
That's
from
right.
Stan Kenton, and this is a new twist on that. Artistry in Metal for anybody that's into guitars and screaming high trumpet stuff. This is the perfect recording for that. So
Yeah.
I'm curious, what was your inspiration in this developing Stan Kenton's artistry and rhythm to artistry and metal?
It has largely to do with my mentor, Fred Stride. He's a world-class composer, arranger. I've known him for about 10 years now, being pretty much, I can say, studying with him as a band leader. I run a band with him called Vancouver Legacy Jazz Orchestra. So he already knew that I was doing online projects that feature high trumpets and stuff. Um, he actually had a metal version of Artistry in Rhythm already written out for his daughter that never got to be played. And he just showed me, just threw in some solo trumpet kind of a track on top of it and asked me if I like it. And I just listened to it. And as with most things that Fred write, I just loved it, just fell in love at the first sight. So I just wrote him back and said, please go ahead. And he asked me to give him a month and a bit. And now we're working on it. I did not realize he would write such ridiculous trumpet lines. I had to sit down and turn a metronome on and go up by 1 BPM. So that's the practice routine for this.
Well, for those out there watching, both Bobby and I were involved in this too, and I can speak for myself that I had to go through the same process. It was ridiculously tough under the fingers. Bobby, what about you?
It was a knuckle buster, that's for
That's a good
sure.
way to put it.
And playing these tricky patterns and tricky fingerings and at a ridiculous pace. I think honestly, for me, I have to say, I think this is amongst the fastest written lines that I've ever had to play in my life.
Me too.
Yes. Same.
Yeah,
But I
but at
think
least just when you thought they would be chromatic and you could sail through them, there was one note changed
Yeah, that's right. It's
going
almost like
up
a key
and then
change.
a different one change coming down.
Yeah.
So thank you,
well,
Fred.
I think
Thank you,
the
Fred.
effect will be really really nice, and your playing is just stellar on this, Michael. It's
Thanks, Bobby.
just super exciting. So tell us a little bit about the launch. How many people were involved in it?
So let's see. We have four French horns. We kind of cheated on the fourth French horn. We decided to go with a euphonium to fatten up the sound. It's just a little bit of a different sound. And I mean, we could have got another French horn, but I thought it would be nice to add some euphonium to the French horn section,
A little
EQ
more
it a bit.
depth, maybe.
That's right. More depth and just more body to the
You
sound.
just had him put his hand in the bell and miss a bunch of notes.
Yes. I think you can see that in the video when he actually does that. And tuba, we got tuba in there. We got a full trombone section, four trombones. We got four beautiful trumpet section I had the privilege to work with. It's Paul, Bobby, and we had Dave Dunlop, who played lead trumpet in Boss Brass after Arnie Tchaikovsky, and we had Ron Lauro as well, and he's with University of Montreal. Used to be with McGill University. as a prof there. And yeah, I just didn't have to worry about the trumpet section. Just send out the parts and just, have the masters deal with it. And I got the parts and
Let us pray and bleed and sweat and then send it back.
yeah. So yeah, the trumpet section was great. Actually, that was the only way that would have worked. If I didn't get heavyweights to play that, it just won't work. It's the trumpet parts were just too hard. And we got a rhythm section. So we got a full rhythm section. We got two guitar parts actually played by one person, Daryl Shanky, and he is our local study. Actually, no, he doesn't study there. Can you edit this out? Yeah, he plays at all over. He teaches at VCC, Vancouver Community College, and we got I think that's about it. And we got our special saxophone player that has always been into the video, but I just decided to make him a special guest and just solo over top of the band.
That way you wouldn't run into the same problem that Rob McConnell did way back when he was starting Boss Brass. There were no reeds at all. It was strictly trombones, trumpets, and rhythm section. And apparently, as the story goes, a bunch of saxophone players came into the club where they were performing, and they're like, like this, you guys need saxophones. This is a big band. So, Michael, I'd like to ask you about how you developed your high range, because boy, you soar for days, and it's just beautiful and seemingly effortless. So, I first of all, darn, for having chops like that. But second of all, tell us how you developed those chops.
Absolutely. As far as I can remember, I started playing trumpet around grade 9. That was I can't remember how many years ago that was. I just picked up a trumpet and just started playing around with it. I had a decent E flats above high C. High range was always easier for me than the low range. Unlike most people, I have to work downwards. If I'm warming up, I have to warm up downwards, because as soon as I pick up the horn, I'm not gonna be able to play a good low G or anything like that below the staff, or even like a low C. Sometimes I struggle with that, so I have to warm up. Well, warm down in my case. And
so where do you start when you're starting? What are your first notes of the day? I've never heard of anybody doing this, but this is super curious. I'm super curious about it.
yeah, usually I just try to start at just a nice low G in the staff, just a nice G in the staff or C, just to check my tuning. And I just do a couple octave slurs, and that's pretty much my warm up, because as soon as the slurs start working, my low range is no problem. So I just need to make sure.
So you're slurring like from middle C up to high C and down, something like that?
Yeah, that's right. Or I like to use the concert pitches. So I like to do trumpet D. I go D and I check it. I check the D above. I go up to an A or a double D, and then come back all the way down to a F sharp. And once that works, then I think it's good to go. And range was always been not one of the things I had to work on. I did when I initially started playing trumpet. I had an E flat in grade 9, and then I wanted to get it a bit more high. So during the summer between grade 9 and grade 10, that's where I kind of cracked how to play a G above high C. Just playing around with my chops, just playing around with my tongue position. And that's where I actually, ironically, figured out how to do a shake as well and lip trills, just from the tongue position. So that's where I got the G.
Paul and I encourage people to experiment, for lack of a better word, to figure out what works for them, because even though there are systems of playing and ideas about different techniques, you still have to figure out what works. I myself have to kind of, I would say, manipulate my chops a little bit if I'm playing a mouthpiece that's really shallow, as opposed to playing something that's bigger. They feel like they're in a slightly different position. So when you're talking about how you cracked this, how you discovered your range or whatever we want to say, what were some of the things you did? Did you remember with your, just like with your, say, your lip positions or your jaw positions, or?
Absolutely. For me, I realized that my jaw position has to be relatively just firm, not moving. My jaw can't really move because as soon as it starts moving, going ah, then it fattens up the sound, but I just lost the range. So I did another exercise to counter that, so I can have a fat sound up there. But that's in my later years. What I did mostly to crack that was just operate my tongue in a way that kind of worked, that I didn't have to jam the mouthpiece on my face, which really hurt actually. And I thought,
We know that
wow,
feeling well.
yeah,
Boy, do we.
this could really hurt me. And my band director at the time in high school, Eddie Travado, I just showed him a sheet music that had a high F. And I asked him, what's the fingering for this? How do I play this? And he just looks at me. He's like, don't kill yourself. Don't try it. So I didn't get any instruction, and I just kept playing, and I just somehow cracked it during that summer. And I think it's literally just tongue position and fast airstream. That's what I can remember. I didn't really do any exercises per se in terms of cracking that register. But I just feel like
Were you more
me,
just like playing notes or playing music, like melodies and things up there?
yes, playing music was the key thing because I wanted to incorporate into music rather than just being able to pop it out like once or twice. I think it has something to do with me being able to shake and lip trill from then on. So my best guess on what I think I did back then, because it's so long ago, is I just manipulated my tongue, and that's how I was able to do it.
Well, that's cool. That's very interesting. Well, as far as like, your gear, tell us a little bit about what you're playing on and what you used for this recording as well.
Absolutely, I play only Yamaha, and I've been playing the Yamaha 8335 LA, which is the Wayne Bergeron model. And I'm sure everybody would know why I would be playing that. Um, it slots really well. It's a very good studio horn. It's not very free blowing, but I kind of like that resistance when it comes to studio high stake environment where I just want to get things done without many mistakes. And it it really works for me. I don't know if it works for everybody else, but it seems to be a very good fit for my the way I use my Airstream.
Well, it works for Wayne, and I think it works for Louis Doddswell too, pretty well.
Yes.
So how about your mouthpiece setup? What were you playing when you're? I mean, what do you use when you're playing these? Like, I mean, because we're talking extreme high register things that you're doing. This is kind of beyond the the normal. Almost, you're getting into superhuman territory sometimes, which is really exciting. And so does your gear vary when you're playing something like that, as opposed to maybe doing some other kind of show, some kind of Broadway thing, or like a salsa band or a big band type of performance?
Not really. My mouthpiece has always been pretty much the same. Embarrassed to say, I haven't really invested much in gear up till about a year ago. And I have played around with mouthpieces before, but then I figured out that having 10 different mouthpieces is not very good for me. It may work for some people, but it just doesn't work for me. I need to be able to really work out how this one particular mouthpiece works and get comfortable with it. I mean, if I were to go into a classical situation and just sit in on a fourth chair or something like that, I would not be using what I'm using right now, which is a wedge. It's just a 14A 4A, but a wedge. Um, I would like to probably change into Bach 3C or something like that. That would be a lot more comfortable for me when it comes to low, big, fat sound kind of stuff. But for salsa bands, Broadway shows, even jazz gigs, I don't change my mouthpiece. It's pretty much what it is.
I have to say, and I know we've had Dr. Dave Harrison on here, with for an interview, and I have a wedge that I play on quite often, and I know he says it doesn't work. It's not for everybody, but boy, I think if you have the right dental structure,
That's
facial
right.
structure, they're pretty cool. I mean, this thing really works for me. And it's just interesting. I even have like mine. I'm not sure about you, but I have an angled rim on mine.
Oh,
And
really?
one of the cool things that I find about that particular mouthpiece is that he has the cup, but he has the cup like if the rim is angled, the cup is moved, so it still has the same volume of the
Oh,
cup, but it's deeper on the bottom and it's shallower from the midsection on up. So for me, when I direct my air down, if I'm playing in the lower register, my sound, even though it's a relatively shallow, I mean, the one I'm playing is a Chuck Finley model, and in the lower register, it sounds nice and fat, and yet I got something to push against when I want to play higher. So it's kind of an exciting and an intriguing shape and something that he's come across that I think is really unique. And there are people that it really works for. So that's great.
yeah, I've never actually heard of that. The angled rim.
Yeah,
Mine's just a
yeah.
straight,
Yeah, no, he can do them at different ones, and I've had bent mouthpieces, and I'm kind of just as an aside for all the gearheads and for the trumpet geeks out here, I kind of play downwards, and I when I'm leading a show or whatever, I tend to bring my horn up, and a lot of times it can add excess pressure to my upper
absolutely.
lip, so I'm always trying to balance it out and I'm always trying to counteract it, but I do like the aesthetics of playing up a little bit more, and I don't have an extreme lower set, but it's nice to have this little angle, and just by having this angle, much like a bent mouthpiece, I just feel like I just naturally have more weight of the mouthpiece on my lower lip, and so it seems to help me quite a bit.
That sounds great. I should ask Dr. Dave Harrison if I can get a mouthpiece like that too, and
You
just
should
try it
try it
out.
if you
Yeah.
haven't done it. I mean, I know they can do it up to like I think 10 or 12 degrees. Mine is just 5, but it's really makes a big difference for me. It's not too much or not too little. So, well, anyway, so Artistry in Metal comes out on when is it coming out?
It's coming out on Wednesday, the 26th at 2 p.m. Pacific time.
Okay, very cool. So we want to make sure everybody gets on this thing and shares and enjoys the premiere with Michael and everybody else in the group. And we'll post up a link for it. And you'll have one more feather in your cap and another beautiful example of your playing. So thank you, Michael, for spending a little bit of time with us.
Thanks, Bobby.
And thank you, Paul, for being here again,
Thank you,
all the
Paul.
way from beautiful Las Vegas.
Viva
And
Las Vegas.
remember, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. All right, fellas, we'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.